This is a story so incredible that it turns everything we think we know about one of history's most famous figures upside down. Before we get into this incredible story, let me offer a quick disclaimer. This video explores an alternative account of the life of Jesus Christ, as told in a remote village in Japan. The purpose of this video is to share an interesting historical story, not to promote or denounce any religious beliefs, nor to be blasphemous. If you are sensitive to alternative views on religious history and think this may upset you, I recommend skipping or stopping the video here. Your beliefs are valid, and this content is intended purely for exploration and discussion. Now, what if I told you that Jesus of Nazareth didn't die on the cross in Jerusalem, but instead fled thousands of miles across the world, lived out the rest of his life in a remote village in Japan, married, raised a family, and died at a ripe old age? It sounds impossible, doesn't it? But in a small village called Shingo, nestled in the Aomori prefecture of Japan, there lies a mysterious tomb that some claim belongs to Jesus himself. A tomb that, if true, rewrites the entire history of the world's most influential figure. But how could this be? How could a man from ancient Judea end up in the remote mountains of Japan? And if this is true, why has this story been hidden for so long? Let's dive into the enigma of Shingo's tomb, where history, legend, and belief collide. Welcome to Timeless Secrets Hub, where we explore the mysteries of history, unsolved conspiracies, and the hidden truths that challenge what we think we know. If you enjoy unraveling enigmatic stories like this one, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any future deep dives into the unknown. Now, let's continue with the story of Jesus in Japan. To truly understand this extraordinary tale, we must go back to the beginning, far beyond the tomb and into the origins of Jesus Christ himself. Jesus, as we know him, was born in Bethlehem in the ancient region of Judea. He was raised in Nazareth, where he grew up, taught, and gathered his first disciples. By the age of 30, Jesus had gained a following, preaching messages of love, forgiveness, and a new spiritual path that threatened the powerful institutions of the time. His teachings eventually led to his crucifixion under Roman rule. But what if that wasn't the end? According to the Bible, Jesus had siblings or close relatives rather than literal brothers or sisters, but none named Isukiri, which makes this part of Shingo's account especially unusual. In Shingo's version of the story, something very different happened. According to ancient texts found in the village, Jesus didn't die on the cross. Instead, it was his younger brother, Isukiri, who took his place. And even more astonishing, how did this brother, who remains almost unknown in any other historical record, end up being the one crucified? This is where the mystery deepens. According to the legends of Shingo, after his brother's sacrifice, Jesus escaped and fled the Holy Land. But where did he go? The story tells us that Jesus fled, not to Europe or to the deserts of Egypt, but all the way to the Far East, to Japan. At first glance, this seems far-fetched, but ancient Silk Road trade routes and connections between the Roman Empire and the East have long been speculated by historians. Could it be possible that Jesus found his way to Japan? In the records preserved in Shingo, Jesus supposedly arrived in Japan during his early years, before his return to Israel. He had traveled east to learn from spiritual masters, gaining knowledge of Eastern traditions, philosophies, and practices. Could this explain some of the similarities between Eastern spiritual traditions and the teachings of Jesus? But this raises another question. How would Jesus, a man from Judea, even know about Japan, let alone make his way there? And what did he learn while in Japan? After years of study and learning, the legend continues that Jesus returned to Israel, armed with wisdom from the East, where he began his mission. His journey back, however, wasn't the end of his connection with Japan. After the fateful events of his crucifixion, or rather, his brother's crucifixion, Jesus, now a fugitive, returned to the place he had once called a temporary home, Japan. But how did he manage to travel all the way back across the globe in secret? Once in Japan, it's said that Jesus found refuge in the quiet village of Shingo, far from the political and religious turmoil of Jerusalem. he lived out the rest of his days as a humble farmer, marrying a local woman and raising a family. This is where the mystery becomes even more intriguing. In Shingo, there are traditions passed down through generations about a man from afar who brought with him strange wisdom and teachings. Could this man have been the Jesus of the Bible? Of course, this raises a host of challenges. Why doesn't this story appear in mainstream religious texts? Why do the accounts of the Bible, considered historical by billions, tell a different story? And if this is true, why hasn't modern archaeology or historical scholarship unearthed more evidence supporting this theory? Could it be that this was a deliberate cover-up, a hidden chapter of history that has been suppressed for centuries? Or is it possible that this is just a local legend, a blend of myth and belief, which grew over time into something larger than life? As we unravel this story, we find ourselves facing a series of profound questions. What is real, and what is simply legend? As we continue this extraordinary tale, we must look at the physical evidence that supports this claim. In Shingo, there are two key locations: the tomb of Jesus, known as Kirisuto no Haka, and a nearby second mound, said to be the grave of his brother, Isukiri, the one who supposedly died in Jesus' place on the cross. These two humble mounds, marked by simple wooden crosses, are unlike any other tombs you might expect for figures of such importance. There's no grand cathedral or elaborate shrine, just these unassuming graves sitting quietly in the Japanese countryside. Local villagers have passed down the story for generations, believing that these graves hold the remains of Jesus Christ and his brother. The tomb of Jesus is said to house not just his body, but artifacts from his life in Japan. Some have even claimed that the mound was opened in the 1930s, revealing ancient relics that suggested a Middle Eastern origin. Yet these claims are hotly debated and remain unverified. Still, this raises an intriguing question. How did this story emerge in Shingo, of all places? Why here, in a village so remote and far removed from the religious and historical epicenter of Christianity? Some believe the answer lies in ancient documents that were allegedly discovered by a Shinto priest in the late 1930s. These documents, known as the Takenouchi manuscripts, are said to contain secret knowledge passed down through centuries by Japanese spiritual leaders. They describe the life of Jesus in Japan, his escape from crucifixion, and the final years of his life spent in Shingo. According to these texts, after fleeing Jerusalem, Jesus traveled across Siberia and into Japan, finally finding peace in this small, hidden village. But here's where things take an even stranger turn. After the documents were discovered, they mysteriously vanished. Some believe they were stolen or suppressed by the authorities. Others claim they were destroyed in the chaos of World War II. Could these ancient manuscripts have held the key to proving the connection between Jesus and Japan? And if so, why were they so quickly lost? There are many theories. Some suggest that the story of Jesus in Japan was considered too controversial and was intentionally buried to avoid upsetting the delicate balance of religious power in the world. Others think the manuscripts were fabricated, nothing more than an elaborate hoax to draw attention to the village of Shingo. But even if these documents were real, we're still left with more questions than answers. If Jesus truly lived in Shingo, why isn't there more physical evidence? Why haven't archaeologists uncovered more relics or remains that could confirm this extraordinary claim? And if the story of Jesus in Japan was suppressed, who would have had the power to keep it hidden for so long? This brings us to the heart of the conflict: belief versus evidence. For some, the story of Jesus in Japan is a beautiful and compelling narrative that fits perfectly into their worldview. It offers a peaceful alternative to the violent end of Jesus' life as told in the Bible, suggesting that he found happiness and family in a faraway land. For others, the lack of hard evidence is too great to ignore. Without the manuscripts, without any conclusive archaeological proof, the story remains just that, a story. It's a tale that defies what we know from historical records, challenging the very foundations of Christian history. So, which side holds the truth? Is the tomb of Jesus in Shingo a forgotten piece of history, or simply a local legend that grew beyond its origins? Let's take a step back and examine the bigger picture. Regardless of whether the story is true or not, it has had a profound impact on the village of Shingo. Every year, visitors from around the world come to this tiny, unassuming place, drawn by the mystery and the possibility that this could be the final resting place of one of history's most important figures. The tomb of Jesus has become a symbol of curiosity, faith, and the enduring power of stories to shape our understanding of the world. And while we may never know for sure whether the man buried in Shingo is truly Jesus of Nazareth, the mystery itself serves as a powerful reminder of how complex, multifaceted, and endlessly fascinating history can be. Now, while I find this story fascinating, I personally view it as more of a myth that may have developed over time. It's worth noting that Christianity first arrived in Japan in the mid-16th century, introduced by Jesuit missionaries, including Francis Xavier, around 1549. This sparked a wave of conversions, particularly in regions like Kyushu, where many local communities embraced the new faith. However, by the early 17th century, under the Tokugawa shogunate, Christianity was banned. The Edict of 1614 marked the beginning of a brutal period of persecution against Christians. Many were forced to renounce their faith or face execution, while others went underground, forming secret communities known as Kakure Kirishitan, or hidden Christians. These believers practiced their faith in secrecy for centuries, blending elements of Christianity with local traditions to survive. In my view, it's possible that the story of Jesus in Japan emerged as a response to these difficult times. For a persecuted people, the idea that their Savior had not only been present in their homeland, but had lived and died among them might have provided a sense of comfort and closeness during their trials. In this way, the story of Jesus in Shingo could reflect a deep spiritual yearning rather than a historical reality. As we stand at the crossroads of history, belief, and legend, the story of the tomb of Jesus in Shingo challenges us to think beyond what we've been taught. So, what do you believe? Could Jesus have escaped crucifixion and lived out his life in a quiet Japanese village? Is there a possibility that the history we know is only part of a much larger hidden narrative? If you enjoyed this enigmatic story, make sure to like, subscribe to, and hit the notification bell to join us at Timeless Secrets Hub for future explorations. What's your take on this legend? Could the tomb of Jesus in Japan really hold the key to a hidden chapter of history? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and together, let's unravel the mysteries of the past. Have you ever heard of other hidden tales like this one? What do you think lies behind the mystery of Shingo? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your take on this incredible story. Until next time, keep exploring the unknown, and remember, history is far more mysterious than we often realize. Stay curious.